Today, we have many ways of being triggered on our fear. People experience difficulty sleeping. They can't turn off their brain. They're ruminating a lot. They're worrying a lot. They experience headaches. They have loss of appetite. They have loss of sex drive. That is how the brain is working. Stress mode is survival mode. But problems arise when we don't get that message, when we don't feel safe. People are more stressed. Everything in life is about balance.
What do you, as a coach, think is the real reason behind why people feel so stressed out, burned out, or overwhelmed all the time?
Well, I think it's not just one reason. I think there are many different reasons why people are stressed. I also think that the word stress has become sort of a blanket term that covers all kinds of feelings like anxiety or feeling scared or feeling nervous. And all of these things are part of the same, which is fear. It is the core emotion behind all of those feelings is fear. And fear activates our stress system to keep us safe and protect us. But it shows up in many different ways. Today, we have many ways of being triggered on our fear.
What do you experience is like the number one physical reaction people with stress mostly have when they come to you?
People experience difficulty sleeping. They can't turn off their brain. So they're ruminating a lot. They're worrying a lot. They experience headaches. They have loss of appetite. They have loss of sex drive. They feel very irritable. They feel like they have lost control, lost focus. Yeah, stress shows up in many different ways. Stress is it's an emergency state that is designed to bring focus and power to the functions that we need in a moment of danger to either flee or fight. And so in order to do that, because we only have a certain amount of energy in our bodies at one time, it slows down certain areas in our brain and our body to enhance other areas in the brain and body.
It makes so much sense, because why spend so much energy on parts that are not very vital in this very moment?
When you have to do something, when you have to act to get yourself out of a dangerous situation, that is how the brain is working, from that assumption that this is do or die. In this moment, this is do or die. So you have to have all the energy sent to the right places. So your muscles, for example, and your lungs, so that you can fight and you can run fast.
So like survival mode.
It's total survival mode. Stress mode is survival mode.
How long would you say someone can uphold that? Because it's not like you cannot do that forever, of course.
The fact is that we can live with it for a very long time, but because we are very good at adapting, so we can live a long time under pressure. But along the way, we start seeing things like increasing headaches or brain fog or irritability or extreme mood swings. Stress in itself is vitally important, because when we are in a dangerous situation, we need to be able to act swiftly and with power, right? For those short bursts. That's really what it's intended for. And when it is in those short bursts, then everything is fine, because once the danger is over, then your body relaxes, you get the signal that you're out of danger, and everything switches back to the regular state. But problems arise when we don't get that message, when we don't feel safe. And then it can linger on for a long, long time, and eventually also cause fatigue or exhaustion and burnout.
A lot of people probably know that they do stuff that isn't so good for them. For example, what I sometimes more than often, unfortunately, do is scrolling on social media to research viral anyways, and then you get lost. I know that social media and the comparison and everything stresses me out. I know that other people have maybe other things, maybe their job or a workaholic, or they have something that they know is causing them a lot of stress, and they know exactly that's the problem, and they have symptoms physically or mentally because of that stress, and they know it, but they don't act upon it. Why is that?
Yeah, give me a solution.
Give me a solution, a fix in 3 seconds.
Yes. Oh, if only we could take a pill or something.
Yeah.
Or take a shot. It's $1 million question. And that it also gives us comfort. And of course, we know by now that scrolling social media, for example, it releases certain hormones in our brain that gives us a good feeling. But it's very short-lived. It's sort of like it's fake. It's not the real thing. And then when we find comfort in it, it gets harder to not do it, even though you know that it's not good for you. When we know that it's bad for us, but if it's something that we've done our entire lives, like talking negatively to ourselves, always comparing ourselves with others, even though we know that it's not good for us and it doesn't make us feel good, it can be really hard to change that pattern, because somewhere in there is either a core belief that this is what you deserve, or there is a certain kind of familiarity in it, and so there's comfort. So you know what you're getting, even though it's not nice. Ultimately, you know what you're getting, and that is comforting.
If I hear you saying that it is mostly comfort, then it means that we need to be actively uncomfortable to maybe stop that habit right away.
Right. Yeah. We naturally gravitate towards comfort.
Yes.
And feeling good. That's it's a very natural thing. But discomfort is something that I think that we should learn to love a little bit, just a little bit, because we learn from discomfort, and it's also, unfortunately, a part of life. The better we become at handling discomfort and seeing it as an opportunity to learn, the more easy discomfort becomes, in a way that we are not as afraid of discomfort. It's not as hard to deal with, or something that we try to avoid as much. When we look at it from a different perspective of this is a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's harder to do when you just know that it's not good for you. It's easier when you decide, when you want to not scroll, because you want to not do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So that element of wanting and desire plays a big part in whether we succeed in actually changing our patterns. So, for example, you love cola. You love Coca-Cola, and you drink it every day. You drink a liter a day. And your mother or father says to you, this is really unhealthy and you should stop doing that. Even though you know that they're right, that doesn't necessarily have the effect to make you change. But if you feel like, I'm actually not, it's not making me feel good to drink this liter cola every day, then you are motivated to actually make the change. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do actually, because that makes a lot of sense. Because when I think back to my childhood, I know that when my mom said that I couldn't do some sort of stuff, it made me want to do it more, because she said I can't. But when I experienced some sort of experience that I didn't like from it, or it had no real benefit for me, I was like, I don't care for this anymore so much.
It becomes much easier when when it clicks for you that you don't want something or you want something else.
What I think is really interesting, maybe it's because I'm becoming older, but what I start noticing in the world right now is that people become really quickly triggered. Wherever you go, certain people get triggered really easily by nothing. Is it because they are in a survival mode or high stress level all the time, or is it because they can't control their emotions?
Yeah, people, I totally agree. People seem much easier triggered these days. And I think it's a multitude of reasons. Both that people are more stressed, there are more triggers around us. They're much more sensory overload. You know, there's noise, the noise levels in the cities have risen. We are more people in a small area. And I think it also has to do with that we are maybe not so good at managing our emotions and also thinking that we are entitled to just express every emotion at every time that we feel like it. If someone wants to get better at managing their emotions, I think there are a number of ways that you can start to do that. I think one of the ways is training self-reflection. So, and making that a part of your daily or weekly routine to check in with yourself. What is going on? How am I feeling? And putting words to it, really naming how you feel inside. Because it's easy to think, well, I'm thinking it, so why do I need to write it down? But actually, the process of writing something down helps the brain absorb the information and again to access the executive functions, to be able to look at it from a different perspective, to remove your feelings a little bit from what you're thinking, and that can already be very helpful in terms of understanding your emotions. And once you understand your emotions, you bring awareness to what's going on with you. And the better you know yourself, the better you become at managing your emotions. And if you want a tool, one of the tools that I really like is it's a wheel of emotions. And so you have the different emotions, you know, like love and surprise and joy and hate and anger, sadness, and try to name all the feelings that correlate with that emotion. So, for example, joy. What are feelings that are joyful? Write every word down that you feel correlates with the emotion of joy. And when you do that, you start to become more consciously focused on what that means. And so the next time you experience that feeling, you're also more in tune with what it is. So when, for example, that something happens that you feel strong emotion, then practicing to step out of the situation where this strong emotion occurs and to try and give yourself the space to digest it, so to speak.
What do you mean by digesting it, per se?
Yes, that's a good question. What do I mean by digesting it? It means because when you are in the moment of a strong emotion, again, you are experiencing stress.
Yes.
And stress is shutting down or slowing down different parts of different functions of the brain that we need in a moment of wanting to understand or being able to control, you know, our emotions, our impulses, and so on. So if you can train yourself to step back in a moment of strong emotions, you help yourself to relieve your stress, even if it's just a little bit. And that opens up for that part of the brain to kick in. And then you can be more clear-headed about what's going on rather than being in the emotion. So it's sort of like being an explorer. or a detective or something. So, let's say I love detectives. So let's say a detective finds a body in the street, and they're absorbing all this information, and they take it home, and then they dissect it. Like, I had this element, I saw this thing. What could that mean? And it's the same. That's what I'm saying. It's the same way to look at if you're experiencing a strong emotion, to remove yourself from the situation and give yourself the time to relax, so that those areas of the brain open up, and you can actually think about, hey, what happened here? What's going on with me? Practicing self-reflection is equally as important. Having a conversation with yourself. It's interesting that in recent years, more and more people are talking on social media about talking to themselves, to actually have a conversation with themselves out loud. So not just in your thoughts, but actually talking out loud. So there was someone, I can't remember who it was some ad person. He wrote a LinkedIn post about this, and he said, I'm just going to come out and say it. I talk to myself. And he would then have his AirPods in his ears, and he would pretend that he was talking to someone on the phone. But actually, he was just thinking about an idea and talking about it out loud with himself. And that is also, even though it sounds a bit weird and strange, and that's something that only crazy people do, there is something to say for it. Because when you speak it out, it has quite the same effect as writing it down. When you just think it, it's just still in here, and it has space to ruminate and spiral. But when you say it out with your voice, something happens. There is a release.
I actually really love that, because this is not the first time that I heard that, but this is the first time that I'm actually thinking about it. Like, maybe I should also be starting that.
In order to calm the stress system and give yourself the signal that you are safe, speaking it out loud can really work very well. Also, singing. Singing is if you like to sing, singing is a great way of calming yourself and your nervous system, and flipping the switch from your stress mode.
Oh.
And also, there have been research showing that when people spoke affirmations to themselves in the mirror, that it actually improved their mood and how they felt about themselves, their confidence level.
So many people ask online, okay, why am I super, super nice with every single person, but with people that are really close to me, I can be really mean?
Very simply because we know that we can be. For example, if people feel that they can't express themselves freely, say in a job situation, but they are very unhappy in this job situation, then what happens? They are nice and pretend that nothing's wrong at work. They're working very hard to mask, and then they go home, and then their child does something silly or something, or the husband has not taken out the trash, and then they explode over something small and insignificant, really. And they will not leave us, or they will not hate us for it, or they will not reject us for it. Why is that? Well, it's because they feel that it's less of a risk to express it at that point than at the place of their job, of the work. It would be nice then that if you then could take a step back and say, oh, hang on, that was maybe a little too much, or I see that it has to do with my work and not you, but that's then a step further.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What I found really interesting on your LinkedIn page was that you wrote somewhere that humans co-regulate each other. And honestly, for first, I didn't know about that. And then second, it sounded really alien to me because that means that if someone is feeling really anxious or stressed and another person is in the same room, this same person also becomes anxious and stressed. Or the other way, when the person is really calm, other becomes also calm. If someone is really, really anxious, is it possible to cut the part where we connect so we don't co-regulate? Or how does that work?
Well, co-regulation, mostly a positive thing. Yeah, for sure. We can also influence each other in a negative way. We can see that when people rile each other up. The question of you can cut yourself off, no. The way to not absorb another person's vibe, so to speak, to be able to decide, to have ownership of when you're letting something in and when you're not. And how do you do that? That has to do with confidence and self-trust, self-love and self-assurance that you are grounded in yourself. When you are that, then what goes on with other people doesn't affect you as much, or you can choose how much. So rather than focusing on how can I shut another person out, I think it's much more valuable to look at how can I strengthen my own resolve and my own person. How do we achieve that confidence? How do we make ourselves feel sturdy enough to not be swayed by other people's moods, for example? And there's so many ways that we can do that. When we are children, it sort of happens as a byproduct of playing or learning. We're not consciously aware of growing our identity or our confidence or self-trust, but it happens as a byproduct of playing games or exploring things or setting our boundaries with our parents and with our friends and with space. But as adults, we can just as well build our confidence through building our skills, building our executive functioning. You know, can we get better at problem solving? Well, take a course in mystery writing, for example. Then you have to solve problems that are not specifically your problems, but it trains the brain to think in different ways, which you then can use in your own life. Move your comfort zone a little bit. Do something that you always wanted to do, but was a little bit afraid of. Learn a new language, for example. Volunteering, for example, is also a good way of building confidence. So it becomes, again, like when we were children, rather a byproduct or a thing that we get from doing something that is not necessarily about confidence, but it builds the confidence because of it.
For your people listening right now, what is the fastest way to interrupt an emotional reaction?
The quickest way is to remove yourself from the situation. To remove yourself from the situation. So say, for example, that you are experiencing, someone said something to you and that upset you. Excuse yourself and go to the bathroom. And when you're there, take some deep breaths, because deep breathing is one of those ways that we can help ourselves settle. And so flip the switch on the stress mode. And even if it's only for a brief moment, it can help us to get more clarity to decide how we want to proceed further. Another really good technique is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And it's 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and one thing you can taste. And what that does is it brings you to the present, to the space where you're in at this moment, and it takes you away from, it sort of gives the brain something to do other than being very upset or very much in the emotion. And that creates a space for the executive functions to step in. And you can become a little more level-headed, make a decision about how you're going to react. Even if you don't know how you're going to deal with, if it's a conflict or a problem or something that has upset you, you can make the decision to say, I'm gonna pause it for now, or I'm gonna say that I can't deal with this right now and I will deal with it later. Already that is an action. And when we act, that is when we give a signal to our brain that we're no longer in danger. Because when we fight or flight, that is action. Those are actions that we take to get ourselves out of a situation. And even if we're just moving ourselves 5 centimeters left or right from the situation, we've made a decision and we have acted upon the stress signal that we've received. And that flips the switch as well.
You've spoken a lot about strengthening your inner harness. And if someone is listening today, if someone really wants to start to get to the more truer version, because they probably have a long journey, but where do they really start now?
Actually, what I see a lot is that when people want change, they want to get back to who they really are. Because we go through life trying to please other people, for example. And so we put on these layers of things that we think, this is how I'm supposed to be, this is how I'm supposed to act, this is how I'm supposed to look like, this is how I'm supposed to think. And these things may not be necessarily how you are or how you feel or how you want to look or the things you like. And all those layers become heavy at some point. And they don't benefit you. In fact, they make you feel unhappy and miserable. You may not realize that is the cause, but it does affect us when we are not being our authentic self, the real person that we are at the core. So a lot of the work that I do is really finding back to that person that you are. And once you sort of get going, it can unravel really quickly in a good way, so that you do suddenly remember, oh my God, I forgot that I enjoy doing this. Or I've always worn black, but I love green. And it makes you feel amazing because it is who you really are. Be kind to yourself. I think kindness to ourselves is incredibly important, because it can be so, it can be easy to sort of fall into a pattern of only seeing the bad things and only looking at all the things that are going wrong and things that you are doing wrong, and nothing is working out. But it will. It does happen. It may not all happen at once. It may not happen in one fell swoop, but it can happen in small, slow processes. But, it's taking a step and then taking another step and taking another step. And before you know it, you have walked a mile.
If you could leave one message to the younger generation, what would it be?
Everything in life is about balance. And it's about finding that balance between caring for yourself and also being there for others. It's a balance between how much you take in and how much you leave behind. I think if you do that, I don't think you can go wrong.